can you talk about what it's like to play Alaric as like the headmaster compared to Alaric, the high school teacher in Vampire Diaries season 1?
Yeah, so you have this evolution from Alaric from high school teacher to headmaster doctor at the Salvatore School, and so it's been quite the journey. And what I like about the show is it really shows different sides of Alaric that you haven't seen before, and so he is in a whole new position of responsibility, and so you see him trying to manage the school, manage being a father, manage being a teacher, managing being a mentor, and managing being a protector. Now that we're setting the stage for the creatures to come creeping out of the shadows and starting to attack the school for some unknown reason, so you'll see him in protector mode. So he's got a lot of hats that he has to wear. He doesn't always wear them well, which I think is what's fun. You'll see him try to keep up with the responsibilities of being a father to not only his daughters, but this quasi-father to Hope, and a father figure to the rest of the school, and being a mentor, which is I've always loved the Vampire Diaries world because it always paralleled like the parallels of your personal life and the story and the characters' lives. It's very interesting. So it's funny to be in this position now as one of the original cast members of season 1 of Vampire Diaries, now kind of like trying to show the ropes to the kids, but also at the same time be not above but relatable and you know, like mentor style, but also you have the experience that you need to share and all the dynamics and personalities that are emerging from our behind the scenes stuff, which is really great, and the interesting parallels that happen on screen. So we've got a wonderful new cast. You've got Alaric 3.0, which is really exciting to be a part of, and I like to think the engine that's driving our narrative right now it's much more nimble than the other shows, where you've got this sort of creature of the week that drives the action on top of the sort of high school drama angst of the kids in the school, and then you've got sort of Alaric managing and modulating through all these different worlds. So I think we're in a really good place. I love the show. I love the episodes that we're doing. We just finished 6. We're on to 7, and 6 is probably one of my favorite episodes so far, and really kicked my butt. And now we're on to 7 and 8. I'm really excited to see how it all is going to wrap up. But I think it stands out in unique contrast to the other two. So I always like to characterize this as finishing our trilogy. And I like how it stands out in contrast to the others. It has its unique voice. I think it's a synthesis of Julie's experience and my experience and our cast and crew's experience, which is really, really nice. And so I think it'll be one of the more balanced of the shows, and I think I'm very proud. Whether we are a wild success or people, you know, whether they get it or they don't get it, it's nice to walk away from creating a show and telling a story that you're proud of, regardless of how it all shakes out. You know, and so I think that's where I'm at.
Speaking of the, will Alaric be the only actor in Legacies that played in all 3 shows?
I don't know. I think I may be one of the few, if not the only one, to do the crossover through all 3 of them.
But no one has come on yet. No one else.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. So I don't think I am the only one. I think Donovan's going to show up, and I think Donovan did a couple crossovers on originals, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, okay, so Donovan and myself, and well, Jeremy Gilbert makes an appearance, but I don't believe he was in the originals, so I don't know. So far it might just be Donovan and Saltzman.
Yeah.
Speaking of the fact that you're kind of one of the only very few characters who have been in all 3 shows. We were talking with Kaylee earlier, and she said that she was a huge fan of the Vampire Diaries growing up, and acting with you was, you know, she felt like a fan because she had, you know, watched you on Vampire Diaries back in the day. So what has that been like for you, you know, growing this father-daughter relationship with someone who, you know, was a fan of the Vampire Diaries and is now a part of this world?
It's so strange. It's very strange. I watched the little promo clip that Legacies released too, and it's not just her. It's like the whole cast watched Vampire Diaries, and we're always into it. And so it's funny to be sort of like this generational actor, you know, where you're part of a show that's touched 1, 2, now moving to 3 generations of fans, and that those generations of fans, that 3rd generation who grew up watching the show, are now like in it. I think it's great. I love it. I think it's cool. I think it's exciting. I think that my career is taking some very unusual turns, and I think being able to play a character this long through these various iterations, it's not even like on the same show, it's been on all these different shows. And then to be able to kind of steward and usher in and work with these young kids who are so put together. Like these third, fourth wave millennials are just so smart and so already integrated and downloaded with the whole new operating system. I feel like anything I have to offer in terms of wisdom to them is just already like built-in common sense. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So you guys already figured that out. I guess I'll just, you know, just do the best I can to be a good scene partner. But it's great. It's they're super talented. They're super smart, and I think it's cool to be part of a show that's gone on this long and has touched a lot of lives. And what I like about the show too is that whether you have seen Vampire Diaries or the originals is almost irrelevant. Like you can jump in and watch the show free from the other stuff and not be lost.
Was it an easy decision to sign on for this show?
Yeah. I knew the story wasn't over, and I always had the sense, like even when I left after season 3, I had that sense like his story wasn't finished, his purpose wasn't yet fulfilled, and I felt like until that story was really told, it'd be hard for me to move on. And so when Julie asked me to do it, you know, it was like one of those things where you're like, we have an audience that's been so loyal and amazing, and I thought if I have a chance to come and tell his story from a new perspective and finish that story and deliver a product to our fans that's really satisfying, to work with my friends and colleagues that I've known for years in a city that I've now grown to love, there are just all the factors lined up, and when I really considered it, I thought, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's make the most out of it. Let's tell this story. Let's complete the journey. Let's finish the trilogy. Let's tell a great story from a fresh new perspective. That's synergized all of our lessons learned throughout the years, and that's exactly what we're doing. And I'm so glad and grateful that I have, because it's been a really wonderful experience so far.
Well, speaking of when you first left Vampire Diaries, that Alaric death scene was so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But we've gotten a few more death scenes of Alaric since then.
Yeah.
Are we going to be seeing Alaric kind of lose his life a few times in this, or is he firmly like?
I think he's a one and doneer on this guy, on this show. So if he's, we haven't talked about it. I don't know what's coming. I don't know what the future is from him. If there is a death and resurrection in his future, I don't think so. I think we've tapped that vein enough, personally, and so I think that he will be, when he dies, that'll be it for him. I think, but I don't. We'll see. Who knows?
How has he changed over the course of these 3 shows? Like obviously the tone of Legacies is so different from like the horror and gore of Vampire Diaries and the originals. So how is he different in this particular moment?
Yeah, well, and that was like one of the challenges coming back, because I didn't want to just rely on what we've been doing. I wanted to find something new, something fresh, and you know, I think for me personally, I've gone through so many changes and had so much growth and so much understanding and a whole different depth of knowledge in the world, and you get to a place where you've learned enough that you want to pass it on. And so I think he's in a stage where he really wants to help, unlike ever before. And I think he really wants to help these kids, you know, prepare themselves for a cruel and unjust world, and a world that doesn't understand them and rejects them. And I think he's in a position where he has the sort of a temperament now where he's faced death, he's faced that darkness, he's looked into the abyss has looked back into him, and he's changed for it, and he's still here. And so he's got a purpose that's forged out of a lot of pain, facing death, and I think now he has an opportunity to help kids not make the mistakes that he made, and I think he's in that position now where he wants to give back and teach, and then that hero's journey, the hero goes out, learns what he learns, and it brings that knowledge back to his village. And I think in that sort of respect, Alaric's gone out and faced that death and has come back now and wants to enlighten these kids as much as he possibly can while protecting them and preparing them for the world. And you'll see him with a different attitude in general. We're getting away from like his tragic love stories and more just into his purpose as father figure, mentor, headmaster, which is just a lot more fresh. You'll see him with a new sense of humor, a different sense of purpose, and I think it'll be a much more enjoyable arc to follow.
You see him kind of give a lot of freedom to Hope you know, like he stands alongside her, he lets her kind of make a lot of decisions, but then is also in her ear kind of behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So it almost seems like he's kind of raising Hope to be kind of the new version of him eventually.
Interesting.
But that dynamic is very different from the one that he has with his twin daughter. So can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the differences between the relationships with his daughters and Hope?
Yeah.
And then also kind of how that impacts their relationship,
Sure.
because they may see him, you know, giving Hope some favoritism that they
Sure.
don't see with themselves.
Well, the definition between the definition of his relationship to Hope and his daughters is still emerging. So where that goes, I'm not quite sure, but you do see that he affords Hope a special attention. She's unique, you know, amongst the rest, and she's the most powerful amongst the rest, and she's a Michelson. She has a burden that he sympathizes with, and he understands that her legacy is unique, and he wants to give her that special care and attention and guidance for a number of reasons, because he knows the burden that is on her shoulders, and he sympathizes with that. He also knows that she has to, above all else, learn to control her powers, because she's the most powerful. So he needs to reassure her and keep her on track with that. And I think, yeah, sometimes it creates a blind spot for his own daughters, where they see him giving her more attention, and it creates a jealousy dynamic between the three of them, and you'll see him kind of caught between that but you'll see when he's with his daughters that they take on a whole special. There's obviously a much deeper special relationship that he has with them as well. But yeah, that's part of what I enjoy about the show. You see his daughters grown and having their own unique personalities emerge, and you see their relationships sort of in that friction between Hope and whatnot, which I enjoy seeing. So how the relationships continue to unfold, I don't yet know, but it's an interesting one that we're exploring right now for sure.
How will the school and Legacies differ from the Salvador Mansion and Vampire Diaries, like specific details?
Well, I think Carolyn brought in a new interior decorator, so we have the same rooms with a lot of different furniture, and it's part of, I think, what's unique about the tone of our show which is it has a nostalgic feel to it. It's very familiar, but at the same time very new, like new characters, new drama, a whole new take on it. So it has that interesting take where you feel the ancestry of the show, you feel the Vampire Diaries, you feel the originals, you see the sets that you're familiar with, but they've been tweaked and modernized and updated in a way that makes it feel new. So it strikes that interesting balance between nostalgia and something fresh and futuristic.
Is Alaric afraid of Hope at all, considering what his history with her father?
That's a good question. If he is, he doesn't show it, you know. But I think it's in there. That's the other thing. He's very vulnerable in that school. You know, like he has to create that order and that authority figure through respect. Because if that respect is lost and it breaks down and there's any sort of dissension that begins to fester amongst the students, he's incredibly vulnerable. And so I think he understands that. I think there's something to be said for keeping relationships copacetic with like Hope and his daughters and these new kids that are coming in, and keeping that balance, but finding the balance between relatability and respect and being an authority figure / teacher. So it's an interesting balance that he has to strike, for sure. But he's very vulnerable there. Yeah.
Is there anyone from the Vampire Diaries that you'd like to work with again on this show?
On this show?
Yeah.
I mean, gosh, I would certainly love to have Caroline make an appearance. I think that would be super huge. Like if we could get her to stop by for the season finale or whatever. I mean, I don't know. Like I love everybody, you know. And I know that everyone's moving on and doing different things and wanting to cut their teeth on new artistic endeavors. But I mean, whoever wants to come back, they're always welcome. It would always be a joy to have anyone make an appearance. Specifically, I would love to see Caroline. You know, for my own, yeah. I mean, I'd love to see Damon, and I'd love to see who else would be great to Bonnie, but I don't know. You know, everyone's doing different things. So like, I'm in a position where I'm like, I'd love everyone to come back. I have specific people I'd love to come back, and we'll see what happens. Time will tell.
What are fans of Vampire Diaries and originals going to love about Legacies aside from the obvious setting?
I think they'll love it because it's different. I think it's very different than the other shows. I think it's freed up from the love triangle. It's freed up from the sort of the family drama of originals, and because it's free and it's got a nice sense of humor to it, the fresh new millennial cast, I think it's got a lightness and a freshness and a humor to it. I think it doesn't shy away from what it is, which is fun, you know, and it plays with the campiness in its humor that's delightful. We have a whole new, because we're dealing with the sort of like the monster of the week, which is nice and refreshing, and each monster is unique and specific, and we've really pushed to do these monsters with like old school hard special effects and moving away from the computer animation of it all. So it has a nice sort of old Hollywood feel to it, old Hollywood monster movie feel to it, I think, which is exciting. You'll see, you know, familiar faces and new, and with the familiar faces, you'll see hopefully new love interests come around for Alaric, and the love interests that are sparked within the kids are going to be compelling and nice. But it doesn't bring, it doesn't have the baggage from the other shows. It doesn't have any of that baggage. It doesn't have any of that weight and heaviness, and so it's just a brand new take on the world, and I think everyone will happily embrace it. I hope. Knock on wood. Yeah.
You mentioned that a lot of your co-stars are obviously moving on to other things. You've got this young cast of people who were incredibly enthusiastic about this because they grew up with it. How do you keep it fresh now that you're, you know, years into doing this and you're still the same character?
It's just about the work. You know, you just dig into the work, you dig into the moments, you dig into the scenes, and you tell the story. I believe in the story, I believe in this character, I believe in this cast, I believe in every show that we've shot, and I love it with all my heart and soul, and I poured my life into it, and I think that is where you'll find new facets to a familiar character. You'll see sides of his personality you haven't seen before. You'll see a new depth to him, and a new purpose, and a new action behind it, and new relationships to it. So it's just got a whole new energy to it. And for me, yeah, the challenge of playing a character for so long is keeping it fresh. But part of the beauty of it too is when you play a character so long. So I find when you're playing as an actor and you take on a character, you're working through the character's thoughts and the character's mind, and you're trying to find that mind, and you're trying to let your behavior be inspired by your character's mind. And I feel like having played this character so long, I've gone from the conscious mind of a character into the deeper subconscious levels of the character. And so for me, the joy is the familiarity, but finding a deeper, richer connection to his purpose than you've ever seen. So I think you're going to see a different quality to my work, a different commitment to it, a different level of purpose and enthusiasm than you've seen with these other episodes.
We have time for one last kind of quick question.
Well, when Alaric was killed off back in Vampire Diaries Season 3, did you have any idea you would ever even be back?
Gosh, no,
Yeah.
I didn't. You know, like when I started the show, I was brought on to do a 4-episode arc, and just fit in really well with everyone. Had a great synergy and a great chemistry, and that turned into a 3-year contract to do the show. And when that was up and the seasons were being written, and that was that, it was hard to leave the show. And went out into the world and tackled that world of being in a different show and trying different projects, and that's when I began to kind of feel like, is his story over? Because I can't fully get away from the universe. I can't fully, there's a gravitational pull that keeps pulling me back into this narrative, you know. And then when Julie asked me if I wanted to come back for season 6, it spoke to that calling where I'm like, this gravitational pull keeps pulling me back in. Is his story finished? And so that's happened with Julie and I have had a conversation twice now where she asked me to come back for season 6 and now for this 3rd installment, which is an honor and a blessing. And so, yeah, I find myself getting pulled back into it, and I think it's because there's a story that has yet to be told, and that's the story we're telling now, and I couldn't be happier about it. So I think this will be it for him. This will be the finale for Alaric. You know, Legacies will be it, and then we'll be set free.